healthcare or other essential worker. Information is at councilforrelationships.org. And South Jersey Gas. We all know there are better days ahead. For now, be safe and take care. Information and answers to questions about switching to safe, reliable natural gas at southjerseygas.com/switch.
Some ER doctors and respiratory care experts notice a strange phenomenon among some COVID-19 patients. They don't show signs of respiratory distress despite severely compromised lungs. More on that ahead this hour on Here and Now.
Funding for Here and Now comes from WBUR Boston and Carbonite, working to protect small businesses from ransomware, designed to help businesses protect themselves before they're targeted. Carbonite can help businesses recover computer files without paying a ransom. Learn more at carbonite.com.
It's Here and Now. Something caught our ear at the beginning of the pandemic. We heard that the Metropolitan Opera laid off all of its unionized workers, invoking a contract clause called force majeure, or a superior force in French. And now we're hearing the legal world is expecting a wave of litigation, businesses citing the government closures because of the pandemic, saying that's a force majeure, an act of God. Nancy Kim is a professor of Internet Studies and Law at California Western School of Law in San Diego. Professor Kim, how big is this? And do these have to be clauses, by the way, in a contract, or can someone just say, oops, I can't fulfill my obligation because of force majeure?
Well, these are a very big deal, and we're going to see a lot more cases involving force majeure clauses. These are clauses in contracts which do exactly what you say, but it will depend on how they're drafted. So if I said to you, the parties will be excused from performance for events not within their reasonable control, including fire, blah, blah, blah. Okay? In that case, if the event that occurs is not like the ones that are listed out there, then you're out of luck. But if you said including but not limited to, then you might be in luck. These little changes in wording make a big difference. But even if a contract doesn't have a force majeure clause, a party to a contract may try to get out of it based on another contract defense known as impracticability, or maybe frustration of purpose, where when something happens that's unexpected, that the parties hadn't anticipated, they're not able to perform because of this.
Well, that's what I was going to say. Can you just say, there's a pandemic, and so sorry, we can't do this? Or does it have to be more specific? I can't fulfill my obligation because the government has said that my workers can't come back. And so it's the government order, really, that is the leverage there, as opposed to the pandemic.
In most cases, it will be the governmental order because the pandemic doesn't sort of prevent you, unless you're sick. Your business isn't actually going to be prevented from doing what they're supposed to do. It's just the concern you have for your employees or for yourself that might cause you to take precautions. And so the governmental orders have been helpful in a sense, in that they've provided companies with something to justify their inability to perform. And so the concern is that when these restrictions start to be lifted, governors should be very careful in how they word the lifting of restrictions. There should be some, cautionary languages. Businesses that are not able to provide the necessary safety equipment must not open. Something to that effect. Because otherwise, businesses might be put in a position of having to fulfill their contractual obligations when they're really not ready in terms of having the necessary equipment to be able to do so.
And if the government says that they can open, they lose that ability to say to a business that they were going to interact with, I can interact with you, I can't fulfill my contractual obligation, whatever it is, buy something from a vendor. I can't do that because the government has ordered me to shut down. They lose that ability if the government tells them to open.
Right, because under most force majeure clauses, the performance has to actually be prevented. And again, the pandemic isn't preventing, unless you're actually ill, somebody from performing, whereas a law or a governmental order which tells you that you can't open a business is preventing you from being able to perform.
Well, that's why March, after Governor Cuomo in New York banned large gatherings, the general manager of the Met invoked force majeure in their contract with unionized employees, laying off all of them. So these clauses are not just between businesses. They can cover workers who are unionized or contract workers. What other examples can you see of when these might be used?
Well, they're going to be used in a lot of different situations, especially when you have businesses and suppliers, and you kind of have this domino effect if one party is not able to purchase what they had originally ordered. So there aren't any clear good guys or bad guys in this scenario, and it's going to be a matter of assessing who is in the best position to bear this loss that's created. And another thing I think that courts will be looking at is whether or not a business, made an effort to try to meet its contractual obligations without looking to the force majeure as an easy out, because it's not going to be an easy out. Let's be clear about one thing. It's not a situation where the clause should be used, and I think it will not be successfully used in situations where somebody's just trying to get out of a losing contract.
That's Nancy Kim, Professor of Internet Studies and Law at California Western School of Law. Professor Kim, thank you so much.
Well, thank you for having me.
Well, we want to look now at something that's happening in emergency rooms. COVID-19 patients showing up without any obvious respiratory distress, even though they turn out to be suffering from pneumonia so advanced that the only treatment is a ventilator. Some doctors are now recommending a simple device called a pulse oximeter. You put your finger in a little plastic cuff and it tells you your oxygen level, and if you see it's falling, you can seek treatment maybe before you get to more serious illness. But others, including the chief medical officer of the American Lung Association, are saying not so fast. So what should we do? Let's bring back Dr. Len Horowitz, a pulmonologist at Lenox Hill Hospital in New York. He's seen some of these sick patients. Dr. Horowitz, it was ER doctor Richard Levitin who wrote an opinion piece in the New York Times extolling these devices. People bought so many it's hard to find one. So first, what is a pulse oximeter? What does it do?
The oximeter is a device that's very simple. You insert your finger into the device. If you have no nail polish on, your room temperature, the device will read how much your blood is saturated with oxygen. The normal level of oxygenation is between 90 and 99%. As you get below 90% saturation, 88 or below can be a warning that there is serious hypoxemia, meaning low oxygen tension. Those patients may not require a ventilator, but they certainly require supplemental oxygen.
Well, and when it comes to COVID-19, we understand that these patients, again, they're not gasping for air, so they don't know that this is happening. It's called a silent hypoxia, I understand.
The first phase of hypoxemia is so-called silent because there's not a lot of inflammation yet inside the lungs, and the lungs are relatively compliant and elastic the way they normally are. The problem with COVID arises because COVID seems to attack the endothelial, the inner lining of arterioles, tiny little arterioles that help oxygenate or expel carbon dioxide. Now, you have to remember that people need oxygen for their tissues to work, every cell in the body. And if you're not moving, you don't have a lot of oxygen requirement. You can tolerate an oxygen saturation of 85% as long as you're just sitting and not moving. So the first stage is in a patient who's just sitting there having endothelial damage but not much inflammation yet in the lung. In the second stage, which can follow in hours, the lung becomes very involved in an inflammatory process where liquids, cytokines, inflammatory mediators build up in the lungs, white blood cells come to fight the battle, and the lungs get stiffer, heavier, less elastic, and those patients who are on low oxygen need to be placed on a ventilator because their work of breathing and their oxygen saturation are so bad that they need a ventilator.
Well, we mentioned Richard Levitan. He was seeing patients come in with you said, it should be in the 90s, coming in with a 50% oxygen rate. But these people have been sick. They've had an upset stomach, a headache. When you first start having those symptoms, let's say they were sick for a week, if they had taken their oxygen level and not waited till they became short of breath, would they possibly have a better outcome?
It's possible. It's clear that checking oxygen saturation is not valuable if if you feel fine, you're going back to usual activities. But most patients who have this silent hypoxemia have a little bit more than just abdominal pain or a headache. They've been sick, and certainly COVID patients that have come down with a fever, chills, sinusitis, and cough, or any kind of shortness of breath, should check their oxygen saturation. There's a great utility in that. For the normal person, it's like taking your temperature every 15 minutes. What's it really going to tell you? Most people don't take their temperature unless they feel like they have a fever.
Is there a risk? I mean, can you misinterpret the readings?
No. The only way you could misinterpret readings would be if you had nail polish on, or your hands were extremely cold, and then you just decide to stick your finger in the oximeter. So I think it's important to have a reason. The reason we wash our hands, for instance, is not to touch our face and not to contaminate other people. The reason you check a pulse oximeter is you have a question about whether your oxygen saturation is okay or not, based upon a suspicion of illness.
The American Lung Association says unless you have a chronic lung or heart condition that affects your oxygen saturation on a regular basis, most people don't need one. Their point was, they're concerned that, as you've been saying, doctor, you could get obsessive about it and ignore other things that a doctor might pick up if you actually went to a doctor's checkup. Do you agree?
Yes, I do. Let's say your symptoms aren't particularly pulmonary at first. It might be nausea, diarrhea, headache, sometimes neurological symptoms. Well, that may make you think that your oxygen's fine. You don't need to check it because you're preoccupied with these other symptoms, which you might not actually associate with COVID. And so there's a utility once you have an index of suspicion, but if there's no index of suspicion, there's no utility.
That's pulmonologist Len Horvitz, who practices at Lenox Hill Hospital in Manhattan, has been helping us understand some of the complexities of COVID-19. Dr. Horvitz, thank you so much.
Well, thank you for having me, Robin.
It's here now.
It's WHYY 131. Good afternoon. I'm Dave Eller. Thanks for listening to Here and Now on 90.9 WHYY FM.
Hi, I'm John Lansing, NPR's CEO. We work with hundreds of local stations across the U.S., including this one, to bring you the most impartial, honest, and trustworthy news we can. It doesn't start with me, or at NPR, or even at this station. It all begins with one person, you. Be a pillar of support for this station. Please donate today.
Visit WHYY to donate. And thank you.
Supporting WHYY Laurel Hill Cemetery, designated as a National Historic Landmark, Laurel Hill Cemetery is an outdoor sculptural garden, horticultural gem, and historical resource showcasing over 180 years of history and art. Nestled on a scenic bluff above the Schuylkill River, Section S at Laurel Hill offers spectacular views on a portion of the cemetery's 78 acres. To learn more, 610-668-9900. That's 610-668-9900.
Just ahead, we're now travel to Iowa, where the caseload continues to rise, even as the state allows malls, restaurants, and churches to resume business.